Start. Good afternoon. I think we'll go ahead and get started with this afternoon's presentation. I'm Wendy Winterstein. I'm serving as the interim dean of the College of Agriculture at Iowa State University. The College of Agriculture and the Office of the President is very pleased, as well as the Committee on Lectures, to sponsor today's presentation by the 2005 World Food Prize laureate, Dr. Modedugu Gupta. I'll introduce Dr. Gupta in just a minute, but I want to first remind you that following today's presentation, we will be holding a reception down the hall in the LeBaron Lounge, where you can meet Dr. Gupta and visit with him a little before he returns tonight for the start of the celebration. Dr. Gupta is a true pioneer. For the past 3 decades, he has worked tirelessly to bring innovative, low-cost aquaculture technologies to millions of farmers. His work has provided the rural poor of Southeast Asia, mostly very poor women, with a nutritious food supply. As a result of his efforts, freshwater fish production has risen dramatically in many countries by as much as 3 to 5 times, and it has been accomplished in an environmentally friendly manner. Dr. Gupta's work has been accomplished through the World Fish Center, an international scientific research organization, its mission being to reduce poverty and hunger by improving fisheries and aquaculture. For his tenacious work to achieve his goal of enhancing nutrition for more than 1 million people, the World Food Prize Foundation in Des Moines is honoring Dr. Gupta this week as the World Food Prize laureate. Besides the World Fish Center, Dr. Gupta has worked for the International Network for Genetics in Aquaculture and the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization. He is a native of India and earned his PhD from the University of Calcutta. Today, Dr. Gupta will speak on the Blue Revolution, helping to end hunger in Southeast Asia. Please join me in welcoming our guest, 2005 World Food Prize laureate, Dr. Gupta.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here amongst you today. And my apologies, my throat is very bad, so I might have to stop from time to time to take a sip of water. This afternoon I was asked to talk on Blue Revolution, helping to end hunger in Asia. Somebody has called the Blue Revolution for increase in fish production. We have the Green Revolution for increased production in the crops. We have the White Revolution in India, whereby the milk production has tremendously increased. Now this Blue Revolution. Some people ask me, from where do we go? Probably the Rainbow Revolution, so we will have everything that we want. So what are the problems that the world is facing today? Hunger and malnutrition is very much prevalent. And also there is nutrient deficiencies in most of the developing countries. It has been estimated there are about 52 million undernourished people globally, and over 1 billion of people live on less than $1 a day. Out of this 852 million undernourished people, 621 million are in Asia. So you could see how poverty is prevalent in Asia and where something needs to be done to remove the poverty and hunger. Recently, the Asian Development Bank has estimated 1.85 billion or 57.4% population of Asia earn less than $2 a day. It's a very meager amount to maintain a family of 4 to 6 people. It has also been said that 11 children under the age of 5 die every minute that we are here because of malnutrition and nutrient deficiencies. So if we are looking at economic development, we need freedom from hunger. and nutrition deficiencies. If you are talking the food security or nutrition security, unless we eradicate poverty or reduce poverty, I don't think we can achieve food security or the nutrition security. In this context, let us see what are the importance of the fish in the food security and the nutrition security of fish. Fish is a major source of animal protein to people in the developing countries, especially Asia. In most of these countries, fish contributes about 40 to 50% of the animal protein intake. But if you look at the rural communities and the coastal communities, fish contributes as much as 60 to 80% of the animal protein intake. If you look at the communities in the Pacific Islands, almost 100% of the animal protein comes from the fish. So that indicates the importance of fish in the diet of the rural populations in developing countries. Over the years, because of the improvements in technologies and improvements in production, per capita intake of fish has slightly increased in Asia, whereas it has decreased in Africa. That's the importance looking of the fish from the nutritional point of view. The fish also has the commercial importance. Fish is the most internationally traded commodity. It's not the rice, it's not the wheat, it's not the corn, it's not the coffee, not the tea. It is the fish which is most internationally traded commodity. Global trade in fish has been estimated at $63 billion. So for the developing countries, fish is not only important from the nutrition point of view, but also commercial point of view. About 40% of the fish produced in each of the countries in Asia is exported outside the country. So it's an export earning commodity. Looking from the economic importance of the fish, globally, fisheries sector employs about 200 million people full-time. And if you add to this the service sector, there are more than 1 billion people involved out of the 6 billion total population, global population, about 1 billion or in some way or the other related to the fisheries sector. It is also a major foreign exchange earner in many countries in Asia. For example, in Vietnam, they export fish worth about $2.5 billion. India is about $1.5 billion. For example, if you look at Bangladesh, it is the second largest foreign exchange earning sector. And also in many countries, the export earnings from the fish pay for the import for the other agricultural commodities. Now look at what is the present status of the fisheries. When we say in the general terms fisheries, that includes the fish captured from the wild and also the fish cultured or the aquaculture. The global fish production is estimated about 135 million tons. Out of this 135 million tons, about 104 million tons is used as a food. The rest of the nearly about 31 million tons is reduced to fish meal as a feed for the poultry, livestock and fish itself. And also the demand has been increasing because of the increasing in population all over the world, increasing dietary habits, and also in the increasing economic situation of the families. Some estimates have put by year 2020, we need additional 40 million tons of fish to meet the growing population at the present level of consumption. Where from it is going to come? Is it going to the additional 40 million tons going to come from the wild catches, or it has to come from the aquaculture? The wild catches have stabilized or gone down because most wild populations have been either fully exploited or overexploited. So there is no potential to increase the production over the years by capturing more fish from the wild. So this is a slide from Cambodia. This is not a trawler from the sea. This is a bag net catch from one of the Mekong rivers in Cambodia. You could see the size of the fish that is being caught. It's a very small fish. That means the big fish has already been exploited. Now we have only the small fish. So at this rate of exploitation, that means you're taking the babies out of the population. So there won't be any big fish. And if we don't take care in this generation, probably the next generation, we have to see the fish in aquaria, not in the supermarkets. So that is the situation that we are facing now. So this is one of the markets in Thailand, where in Southeast Asia, people depend more on fish for their nutrition. See this young boy from Bangladesh, just a small fish, how happy he is. That will address his family's one lunch. Looking to the importance of aquaculture. Aquaculture is the fastest growing agriculture commodity. The annual growth in production is around 10 to 11%, and no other agriculture commodity is showing this growth, annual growth in production. And most of this aquaculture production does not come from the commercial farms, but from small scale operation. Nearly 80 to 90% of the global aquaculture production comes from the small scale farms. If you look at the 1960s, only 6% of the global fish production came from aquaculture, and 94% production came from the wild. Sorry. Now you look at the picture in 2003, the production from the wild is only 65%, and the contribution from the aquaculture is 35%. That means more and more aquaculture production is contributing to global production. And it has been estimated that to meet the growing demand in 2020, aquaculture has to contribute about 45 to 50% of the total food fish production. And when you talk about the aquaculture production, 90% of the aquaculture production comes from Asia. So that means aquaculture is not only important to Asia, but also globally to all the countries. And also out of the total global fish production, 63% comes from Asia. So the total fish production, 63% comes from Asia. If you look at only the aquaculture, nearly 90 to 91% come from Asia. So what has led to the increase in fish production from aquaculture? Some people term as blue revolution. Some people call it as aquaplosion. Till 1960s, the aquaculture was depending on for the seed or the baby fish collected from the wild. There was a breakthrough in fish breeding technology, and techniques were developed to breed the fish in hatcheries, and that has resulted in easy availability of the seed for aquaculture operation, and that has been one of the promoting agents for the increase in fish production. Then this was followed by development of low input, high output aquaculture practices. This means mostly we are talking the small farms. The inputs include besides the baby fish, agriculture byproducts like the rice bran, the wheat bran, cattle manure, aquatic weeds are used as feeds and fertilizers. So the cost of productions to the small scale farmers in the rural areas is very low. At the same time, the farmers are able to get high productions up to 5 to 6 tons per hectare. So when you compare the economics of rice growing with fish culture, the fish culture keeps nearly 8 to 10 times higher incomes compared to the rice or the wheat production. And some of the technologies also that have been developed, you see, even the technologies have gone to that extent, even 3 to 5 months time, you can raise a crop of fish in shallow waters. Even if there is a pond or a ditch which holds only 60 to 80 centimeters of water, one can grow some species of fish in 3 to 5 months' time, reaching a table size of each of about 150 to 200 grams and producing about 1 to 2 tons per hectare. This is a sort of a backyard pond in Bangladesh where the farmers grow their fish. You can see the poor living in the small huts. So this is a pond which is used for multi-purposes, for bathing, for washing, and also for the fish production. And this type of ponds can give about 5 to 6 tons per hectare of fish per year. The average size of these water bodies and ponds is around about 200 square yards to about 1,000 square yards. The third factor that has contributed to the blue revolution or increased fish production is integration of aquaculture with agriculture. So here, for example, you can see that fish culture is integrated with the rice farming. So it has lots of benefits. It has diversifying the commodities. That means the farmers can have both fish and rice, and the risk is reduced. For example, rice crop fails, he has a crop of fish, or if the crop of fish fails, it is a crop of rice. The cost of production is decreasing, and the total returns are also increasing. And also, it has been shown that by integrating aquaculture with rice farming, the use of pesticides either can be minimized or completely avoided, because fish are acting or predating on insects and the pests that are present in the rice farm. So that is leading to a better environment, not only increased production but also a better environment. And it has also been shown by integrating fish culture with rice farming, rice production also increases by about 9 to 11%. That's another benefit. The third benefit is by putting fish into the rice farms, the farmers doesn't have the need to use the weedicides or manually removing the weeds from the rice paddies, because the fish that in the rice paddies will be browsing on the soil to catch the worms and the insects in the soil to feed upon them. In the process, they will be uprooting the roots. So there is no need for any weedicide or other chemical to be used to kill the weeds. This is a catch of harvest from the fish from the rice field. There are various types of integration in the rice fields. The integration could be done in irrigated system. The integration could be done during the rain-fed seasons, and also the productions of fish in the rice fields could vary anywhere from 100 kilograms per hectare to 1,000 kilograms per hectare. And also lots of benefits also there. For example, by keeping some water in the area for the fish, if there is a drought and there is not enough water for the rice paddies, this water can be pumped into the rice fields so that the farmer will be able to save the rice paddies in case of the drought. Also, the fish culture could be integrated with the livestock raising, with poultry, with the ducks, or with the hogs. Here you could see this is one of the small integrated farms where the farmer has constructed this poultry shed on the top of the pond. It has lots of benefits. The excreta falling from the poultry falls directly into the pond and forms the feed for the fish and also fertilizes the water. So in the process, the farmer need not put any inputs into the pond for the water, for the fish. No feeds for fish, external feeds, or no fertilizers. Only the excreta is good enough to feed the fish. So by raising the poultry and putting the feed in only for the poultry, is able to raise both the poultry and also the fish. And also it is environmentally good. If the poultry has to be raised separately on the land, it creates a lot of problem. The excreta creates lots of problem here, so it's environmentally sound here. The excreta is falling into the water and is eaten by the fish. The other area where that has contributed to the increased fish production is the involvement of the vulnerable groups like the landless people and the women. The other day I was looking at some of the statistics that has been published by the Asian Development Bank. 1.1 billion of the global population is involved in agriculture. Out of this 1.1 billion, 452 million are agricultural laborers earning less than $1 a day. That's a pitiable condition. So we are looking at how to involve these landless farmers, laborers in fish culture. Beside the private properties, there are large number of rivers, reservoirs, public water bodies, tanks. We thought we could involve these landless people in this raising fish in the public waters. What we did is, working closely with the non-governmental organizations, we formed the groups of these landless people, motivated them, trained them, and leased these public water bodies, either come from the government or the private bodies, private waters from the landowners. So these water bodies was leased to these landless groups, and these landless groups practiced fish culture and were able to reap very high productions and very high profits. What happened in the next year? The landholder said, we are not willing to lease it out, we will do the fish culture ourselves or double the lease value. So what the NGOs now they are doing is taking a lease at least for minimum to 6 to 7 years, so that the landless people who have been trained will be able to continue their avocation at least for 6 to 7 years time. So this also has brought a revolution among the landless people and increased their incomes and also nutritional status. This is one of the operations on a river, what we call as the pen culture. In a big river or a reservoir, a particular area is enclosed through a net, and inside that net, the fish is cultured. The other vulnerable groups were looking at the women. In some of the countries, women are very active, work in agricultural fields. But in other countries, they are only involved in household activities and does not contribute to any income generation in the families. So we are looking at those communities where women can be made more productive and contribute to the household incomes. So what we did again in these countries was through using the NGOs as a media, we trained the women, first motivated them to go into the fish culture, trained them, made the inputs available to them. The NGOs provided the credit without any collateral, and now that has done wonders. Because these household farms are just in the backyard, so they need not go anywhere away from the house. That will not take away their time also. And now the household's incomes have doubled because of the additional income from the fish. And the households are getting better nutrition because the fish is there in the house. And most importantly, the status of woman has increased. The woman didn't have a status in the family. It was like one living person, that's all. She didn't have her own identity, just only for cooking and mending to the children. But now once she became an earning member, she had a good status in the family and also in the society. And in fact, when we were working with some of the NGOs who were helping the destitute women, when we talked to these women who are involved in the fish culture, they said, our husbands used to beat us before when there is not enough food in the family, which was none of their problem. But now they said they can't dare to touch me because I earn more than him. So that was the revolution that has taken place actually. Now, we did a few years back collected some statistics. For example, in Bangladesh, 60 to 65% of the aquaculture fish farmers are women. So that's how it has improved the nutritional status in Bangladesh. So these are some of the photographs from Bangladesh. The other activity that has led to increased fish production is the development and use of better breeds of fish. If you look at the increase in fish production in crops and the livestock, it is because of genetic enhancement or genetic improvement that has, or genetic engineering that has resulted in high yielding varieties of rice, wheat, corn, poultry, hogs, and things like that. But when it comes to the fish, not much has been done in terms of genetic enhancement in the last 3-4 decades. It's only in the last decade some research has been started for genetic enhancement of the fish. Now that has resulted in increasing the productivity using the same quantity of inputs. This research actually started in the 1990s using tilapia as a test case. I am sure tilapia is native to Africa, but it's present all over the world. 10 years back, it is considered the poor man's fish. Thought it doesn't taste much, it tastes muddy, it smells muddy, but it's a very hardy fish. It can grow under very difficult conditions, very low depth of water, very turbid water, and very low inputs. But now, it has become one of the 10 exporting commodities of fish. I think you can find out in the supermarkets in the US, selling at about $6 to $8 per pound. So that sort of revolution, a poor man's fish has become a rich man's fish now. So the techniques developed for genetic enhancement for tilapia are now being used for other species of fish, especially the carps, which form about 70% of the aquaculture production. So what has been impact of all these technologies and interventions that have been taken place through research and development? The productions have increased from 1 ton per hectare to 5 to 6 ton per hectare in small scale aquaculture operations, and in commercial operations the production has gone as much as 10 tons per hectare. For example, if you see the impact, national aquaculture productions has increased in India from only 63,000 tons in 70 to over 2 million tons in 2003. In Bangladesh, it was 75,000 tons in 1985. Now it is 800,000 tons. And this increased production has led to improved nutrition and incomes of the rural households. Now, if you look at the price of the fish developed through aquaculture and the price of fish caught from the wild, the price of fish caught from the wild has gone up. The prices have gone terrifically high, whereas the price of fish from aquaculture has come down because of this aquaplosion or blue revolution that has contributed to the increased fish production. And also it has created increased employment opportunities in the rural areas. As I said earlier, global contribution to global fish production has increased from 6% in 1960s to about 35%, and it is expected to contribute about 40 to 45% by 2020. Now, fish is contributing as a major source of animal protein to more than 1 billion people in more than 58 countries as a major source of protein. Who are these beneficiaries of the aquaplosion and the blue revolution? In the developing countries, 60 to 80% of the population depend on agriculture, and these are the people who are benefiting from the improved technologies for increasing the fish production. The consumers also, who depend on fish as a major source of nutrients, because of the lower prices, because of the increased production, they are also able to consume more fish. There are more increased employment opportunities, and also the developing economies of the developing countries. As I said, fish is a major exporting commodity in many countries of Asia and contribute to their foreign exchange earnings. And the foreign exchange earned through the export of fish is being used to import other agricultural commodities, rice like wheat or corn and things like that. I hear from some people aquaculture is doing damage to the environment. My response is yes and also no. Because there are so many types of aquaculture practices. For example, if you look at the culture of shrimp or culture of salmon, no doubt they have created some environmental problems. But that's not the case with all the fish culture operations. When we are talking of the small scale aquaculture operations, I think they are more environment friendly than degrading the environment. In conclusion, I could say increased aquaculture production and its contribution to fight against poverty and hunger and malnutrition in Asia could be attributed to revolution in breeding, hatchery and nursery management, improved farm management, integration with farming systems, and community-based approaches in development. Thank you very much. This is in a brief.
Would you be willing to take some questions?
Yeah, sure. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer.
Any questions for Dr. Gupta? David?
Yeah, please.
Have you seen successful microcredit schemes that help farmers get started in fish raising, say the small farmers with limited resources?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what actually I was working with the NGOs when we were working in the communities. One of the problems the small scale farmers face, okay, you are the NGOs and also the government extension people or the developmental agency. The government extension agencies goes to the farmers, tell you the technology, but they don't help them to get the credit. They don't help them to get the needed inputs. They won't provide help in marketing the product. So it's only the technology that is given. But whereas when you go to the NGOs, they start with motivating, telling the people what this technology is there, what is needed, what will be the output, and what will be the profit, and what will be the risk. And then they provide microcredit without any collateral. They charge anywhere between 21 to 23% as interest per annum, against the bank interest of 8 to 9%. But still, the farmers go to the NGOs paying these high interest rates. First, there is no collateral needed, there is no property to be bonded to them. Second, if the NGO is giving the money to them without any collateral, that means the NGO is sure that technology that is disseminating is viable and the farmer will be making money and will be giving back. If you look at the recovery of the loans by the government banks, it's utterly low, 60% or maximum 80%. But you look at the history of the NGOs, it is 95 to 100%, 95% to 100% recovery. So the NGOs are coming with a package right from the start to the end to the marketing side. So that has been actually successful in bringing the small scale farmers into these intensified systems.
Here we go. Ramesh?
One of the challenges we are facing for the inland and coastal water bodies is the environmental pollution, especially the nutrients which are coming from either animal production facilities or intensive agriculture or many of the developing countries, the human waste is going directly into the water bodies. You see any threat to aquaculture because of these sources of environmental pollution, especially to the water bodies?
Yes, we do see a threat not only for aquaculture operations, even for the wild populations, because of the outflow of so much sewage, industrial waste, agriculture waste, all running into the coastal areas. That is affecting the inshore fisheries actually, because these inshore fisheries form the breeding and nursing grounds for most of the species of fish. If these inshore areas become polluted, that they are destroying the breeding and nursing grounds of the fish. So that has an impact on that. In the past, what has been happening is there are sectoral plans. Fisheries has its own plan, irrigation has its own, land development has its own industrial plans. There is no integrated developmental plans. Now we are talking integrated coastal zone management, taking into consideration the industry, the fisheries, the agriculture, and all aspects of human use. So that's what is needed very much. Yeah.
You made that co-culturing of fish and rice look very appealing. Is that something that's many rice farmers are now adopting more and more? Is that expected to be a major way of rice growing? Is rice plus fish?
If you go back to the history, farmers 4 to 5 decades ago, or even more than that, they were capturing fish from the rice fields. Because in those days, we didn't have these high-yielding varieties of rice. The rice paddies were taking 6 to 8 months to mature, and they were requiring higher depth of water. So the fish were entering with the flood waters, growing along with the rice in the rice paddies, and at the end of the rice season, the farmers were catching the fish, wild fish. But with the introduction of high-yielding varieties of rice, which mature in 3 months' time, they are dwarf varieties. They don't require much water, and they require high inputs of pesticides and fertilizers. Because of these reasons, fish has disappeared from the rice fields. Now, along with these high-yielding varieties of rice, what we call integrated pest management. You can manage the pests without the use of the pesticides. So under those circumstances, the farmers are getting interested in putting fish into the rice fields. So the agriculture extension workers are going to the rice farmers and telling, you follow the integrated pest management measures, there is no need to use the pesticides. But it's very difficult to convince the small scale farmers. He thinks if you don't use the pesticides, he will lose his crop. So they had problems in convincing. Then when we joined the hands with them, when they put the fish into the rice fields, they will think twice before applying a pesticide, because they are afraid if they apply the pesticide, the fish may die. So indirectly, not only increasing production profits, but also leading to a better environment in the land. Please.
Thank you for a very informative and beautiful talk. It was very lovely. I've got a question about the nutrient content of cultivated fish in comparison with the wild type fish, because that's one of the concerns here in the U.S., particularly the fatty acid profile of the fish and whether or not the fatty acid profile is as good in the cultivated fish. So I wondered if you might shed some light on that, if you know anything about that area.
Okay, that depends on the species to species, and also the management measures you give, depending on the feed that is given to the fish. It's not only the fatty acid profile, but also the taste differs. In some countries, people say the wild fish tastes much better than the cultivated fish. So it depends on the management, but otherwise you don't see much difference in fatty acid profile of the cultured fish versus the wild fish. It is mostly the fat composition that it determines, and the fat composition of the fish is determined by the feed that is provided to the fish.
Let's go back over here in the back.
Another question along that same line. Here in North America, many recommendations at this point recommend against consumption of fish by pregnant women and infants and children because of PCBs and mercury contamination and biochemical effects. How do you integrate concepts like that into
Could you please repeat?
Sorry. Here in North America, there are recommendations against high levels of consumption of fish by pregnant women and infants and children because of the bioaccumulation of mercury and PCBs in fish. How do you integrate those concepts into your aquaculture plan?
Again, it depends where you are growing the fish. If you are growing the fish in the polluted waters, that bioaccumulation that you have been talking will be there. But if you are talking the way that you are talking environment friendly, the toxic elements won't be there. In fact, the doctors are now in Asia suggesting people turn, especially the pregnant women and the children, eat more lean fish, and especially anyone convalescing from the disease or fevers and things like that, the doctors are advising eating more fish. So it depends on where the fish is grown, the type of water, the polluted water and things like that.
Diane?
With all of the problems that we've had with feeding, bovine tissue and to cows and the prion disease, I'm wondering if there's been some a careful look at feeding fish meal back to fish to make sure we don't have some, similar problem as the prion disease in fish, or other problem that at this point in time we're not aware of, but the idea that the animals, weren't used to eating their own.
There have been no such problems in the case of the fish, but the concerns are something different. If you are talking the culture of the marine fish, it takes 3 kilograms of wild fish or the small fish to raise 1 kilogram of marine fish for the table size. The so-called trash fish or the small-scale fish which are being used in the fish meal actually are eaten by the developing country people. So you're using 3 kilograms of fish to produce 1 kilogram of fish. That's one. Now when the demand is increasing and the wild populations are decreasing, in the future there will be a shortage of fish meal. So that means the animal industry will suffer, not only the fish industry. So now we are looking at replacing the fish meal with vegetable protein like the soybean meal. So that's more our concern, not the disease of feeding the fish to fish.
Can you describe the pattern by which the woman or the small farmer gets the produce to market, gets income from it?
The demand for fish in these Asian countries is so high. The middlemen come to their homes, and as soon as the fish is harvested, they take away the fish to the market. So there is no need for this woman to take the fish to the market. It is the middleman that they come to the fish and then take to the market. So probably when the production increases, then we have to look at post-harvest technologies to transfer the fish from the homesteads to this. I can give you an example. In India, the state from which I come, mostly 65% of the population are vegetarians. You have different ethnic groups, cultures in India, but in the eastern part of India, they allow to eat fish any time of the day. You wake him up at 12 o'clock in the midnight, you would like to eat the fish. So the demand is so high. In my state, the per capita consumption is only 3 kilograms. But you go to the eastern part of India, the per capita consumption is about 30 kilograms, 10 times more. So what happened in my state where the fish culture was not practiced for about 15 years back, now since there is a big market in the eastern states, they converted rice paddies in fish farms. It's a very fertile land. They grow 3 crops of rice. They converted that into fish farms. And the harvest right from the farm is loaded into insulated trucks and transported over a distance of 1200 kilometers by road, and still it reaches the market. So the demand is so high, so still there is not a problem for the marketing. The other reason actually when we started involving the women and encouraging small scale farmers to aquaculture, we thought whatever they are producing will be eaten by the families, then they will improve their nutritional status. But we found out they were selling 80% of their produce in the market, or only consuming 20%. The reason, because they have so many necessities, education of the children, the clothing, the medicines and all those things, that's one thing. The second, they said the fish that they are growing are much higher value. They cannot afford to eat this high value fish. They are selling that fish in the market and buying dried small marine fish. In fact, they are getting better nutrition by eating the whole marine fish. They are eating also calcium and things like that. And some of the small fish have more nutrition value than the big fish.
Right up here.
Doctor, it has been a very illuminating talk. As you say, you are from a vegetarian state, and I come from Assam, East. So we are visiting people. When I go to Assam, I see there's not too much of aquatic culture of fish in Assam.
Yeah.
Most of the fish come from animals.
Yes, sir.
Could you comment on that? Why it is not there in Assam?
Probably there could be various reasons. The government is not active in promoting aquaculture. That's one. The second reason, I said my state is producing so much fish. In fact, 60% of the production comes from my state because the so-called farmers are not really farmers. They are entrepreneurs. Each farm size about 50 acres to 100 acres. And these people are well-educated people. Some are doctors, some are engineers, some are postgraduates. So they saw money in fish culture, converted their rice farms into paddy fish, into fish culture farms. So aquaculture has become an industry now. Agriculture income is not taxed in India, but now after seeing the profits the aquaculture people are making, aquaculture profits are taxed. So they are seeing aquaculture as an industry. So that's what it is going on.
Yes.
Do you expect to see an explosion of agriculture also in Africa?
Sorry?
You spoke about Asia and the increase in Asia with agriculture. How about in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa? Do you expect to see something similar?
Yeah, aquaculture in Africa unfortunately has not taken off. A lot of investments have made in the past 2 decades. A lot of investments have gone. A lot of money has been put by the donors. For various reasons, it has not taken off. There could be various reasons. One, that's what I personally think. People try to copy the aquaculture technologies generated in Asia to Africa. They are not to take into consideration the cultural, the social, and economic differences present in Asia and the Africa. They try to just copy the technologies from Asia to Africa. They failed. That's one thing. The second, also they looked at it as fish for house consumption. That didn't work because the farmers were looking for cash incomes, not the fish. So again, there is a relook of aquaculture development in Africa. In some of the countries like Egypt, Nigeria, Malawi, it's still picking up now. So now, earlier what is called top-down approach, we do a research institution, and try to take this technology to the farmer to implement, which was not working in many cases. Because these technologies were developed under ideal conditions, which may not reflect the situation that exists in the field. So what we are talking now, when you want to develop any technology, go to the communities, talk to them, assess their resources, both human, in terms of how much time they can devote to this fish culture, what natural resources they have, and what sort of financial resources they have. Based on this information, you tailor the technology to suit them. Then it will work. That's what is working. That's what we call as bottom-up approach. That is working. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
One final question. I think then we'll go down to our reception.
Yeah, I don't have a question. Just a follow-up comment. Comparison between Asia and Africa.
Yeah.
Do you think it might be possible that Africans' eating habits are different than Asia? In Asian countries, they love rice and fish. In Africa, they like bush. So I don't know if that is a factor.
No, that's not the case actually, because in Africans, because there is not much from aquaculture production, they were much dependent on the catches from the marine waters and also their reservoirs and the lakes and things like that. Now the fish production from the wild has gone down. Now all the governments are worried how to bridge the gap between the supply and demand. So they are now also giving more importance to aquaculture. In some countries now, actually aquaculture is in the Ministry of Agriculture. Now to give an importance to the sector, now there in some countries they have created separate ministries for fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries, separate from the agriculture. So the realization has come that for increasing production they have to go through the aquaculture.
Dr. Gupta, thank you so much. It was
You're
wonderful.
welcome.
And again, I invite you all to join us down in the lounge for more conversations with Dr. Gupta.
Ready, switch it off.
They'll figure it out.